Welcome to a new episode of the PodcAls. I'm Joey Alfieri with you every week, and we get into all the latest news and notes in and around the Montreal Alouettes. And this week we do have quite a bit of news. We've got a long, fun interview coming up as well with a coach and a player at the same time. We'll get to that momentarily, but just want to remind you that before we get into what's gone on this week with the Montreal Alouettes, we do have some stuff that you can get. You can pick up from our team store. You could get some Grey Cup merchandise by visiting the Alouettes shop. You can go to MontrealAlouettes.com, click on the boutique tab, or you can click on the store tab, and there's a Grey Cup option that pops up, and there's some limited stock left. Obviously, we've sold a ton of merchandise for the Grey Cup Championship. There's a hoodie, there's the t-shirt and cap that the players wore, there's a toque, there's a cup, there's all kinds of stuff. So make sure you get all your latest Montreal Alouettes gear and merch at the team shop. You can pick that up as soon as right now. Right now, you can pick all that up. And don't forget that there are 3, 5, 10 and season memberships available as well that you can also pick up. So just because it's the off season doesn't mean you can't buy your Als tickets, doesn't mean you can't buy your Als merch, so that you're ready come training camp in May in St. Jerome. It seems like it's far off, but free agency is coming up really soon. And training camp is just a few short months away. I can't wait for there to be more football. Super Bowl obviously in a couple weeks, but once the Super Bowl is done, I mean, there's no football until the CFL starts. So that's where we are. That's where we're at. Some news and notes. Speaking of free agency coming up, there's a player who's been around for a long time who, is not going to be a member of the Montreal Alouettes any longer, it appears. William Stanback was announced on Tuesday that he had requested his release. He was scheduled to become a free agent on February the 13th at noon. This way, I think it just kind of works best for him in that the Alouettes agreed to release him so he can start negotiating with teams right away. So it doesn't have to wait for the market to open. And that's significant for a couple of reasons. One, it gives him a jump start to, be able to sign and sign a new deal and make some money before free agency begins, so he can make it a little sooner. But the big thing is, and if you look at the market, the way it's set up right now at running back, there are a lot of running backs that are going to become free agents on Feb 13. You think of Brady Oliveira, who is, and of course this can all change, assuming that these guys sign or they don't sign with their teams. But if they do sign with their teams, they're obviously off the market. But right now, Brady Oliveira is free. AJ Ouellette is free. Jamal Morrow, who was in Saskatchewan, is free. Kadeem Carey out of Calgary is free. I mean, Walter Fletcher is still under contract until a couple weeks from now, but he could become a free agent as well. So there are a couple of guys that could hit the market, and it'll be fascinating to see how this all works, how it works out, and who ends up where, because you'd have to think based on the amount of openings that there are at starting running back. Like, it looks like Kadeem Carey's not going back to Calgary, but they re-signed Mills, their running back, and Dedrick Mills is probably going to be the feature back there. So that's a job that is no longer available. So look, I mean, there's different teams that may need a running back, but I think that there might be some running backs left out in the cold here if they don't sign quickly. So, good for Stanback to ask for the release, get the release. Clearly, they could not make it work in Montreal. But again, when you're living in a salary cap world, and the salary cap is right around $5.5 million, and you decided to re-sign a lot of key free agents, especially on the defensive side of the ball, when you think of guys like Sean Lemon, Darnell Sankey, Tyrese Beverett, Mustafa Johnson, all those guys were entitled, and rightfully so, to raises, and so they'll make more money. So you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere at some point, and clearly running back is where that's going to be for the Montreal Alouettes. As of right now, of course, you never know. They might go in and dip their toe in free agency, but we just don't know how that's going to be. They might just bring back Walter Fletcher. We'll see. We'll find out what exactly is the thinking and the thought process here. It'll be interesting to get comments from Danny Machocha at some point. I'm sure he'll meet the media before the start of free agency. But it looks like William Stanback and the Alouettes, it's done. And William Stanback was granted his release on Tuesday, late morning, early afternoon. So fascinating to watch. As of right now, there's a couple of guys who have signed with the Alouettes, guys that have no CFL experience, so their name might not mean anything to you, but these are all guys that will probably compete for roster spots come May and June. Looking at guys like Charles McClelland out of the University of Cincinnati, Mike Weber Jr. from Ohio State, and Marcus Williams Jr. from Louisiana Tech. And of course, Jeshrin Antwi, who we had on the podcast last week, he's just re-signed he has a new deal for 1 year, so he might get a bigger role on offense. So he's a guy who can factor in as well. Maybe it's Fletcher Antwi, maybe it's just Antwi. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Just a reminder, we will be speaking to former player Dave Brown, who's offensive lineman for a number of years with the Montreal Alouettes. Hurt himself in training camp, suffered a third ACL tear last training camp, and is now assistant O-line coach to Luc Brodeur-Jourdain. He'll join us. What he doesn't know is that his good friend, all-star center for the Montreal Alouettes, Justin Lawrence, will be jumping on the call with us, so we'll surprise Dave Brown with Justin Lawrence, and we'll see if we can get some good stories out of them. That's coming up in just a couple minutes. But one other headline I wanted to get to, I know I got this question a lot from fans on social media. What's the latest with Luol Ugwak? There's been reports and that he's going to the NFL and that he signed in Tampa Bay. Well, that became official just minutes after the William Stanback news. So Tuesday was a big day for the Montreal Alouettes and the Alouettes Nation with Al's News. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made it official that Luol Ugwak is going to Tampa Bay, signs a futures contract with them. Again, it's a big loss. He played such an important role in winning the Grey Cup. And I think if you watched, you saw that. If you're just looking at numbers and you say, hey, only 3 quarterback sacks. Yeah, maybe only 3 quarterback sacks. How many pressures? How many balls batted down? You know, you think back to if you remember the Mustafa Johnson fumble recovery for a touchdown in Edmonton, Ugwak is the one that stripped the ball out of Trey Ford's hands. So there's a lot of plays like that, some big hits right around the line of scrimmage. I remember one on Brady Oliveira in the Grey Cup that kind of got momentum going back Montreal's way. So Luol Ugwak is off to the NFL. That is a big loss. There's no hiding that. Yeah, so we'll see. Again, the Alouettes have, like Austin Mack, when Austin Mack joined the Owls last year, I believe he signed a 2-year deal, played the first year. The second year, he's going to go off to the NFL. So if it doesn't work out for Austin Mack and he wants to come back to Canada, the Owls have his rights through this season. For Luol Ugwak, the entry-level contract is for 3 years. So he's played one. There's 2 years left on his deal. If it doesn't work out for him in the NFL, he can come back this season and play for the Alouettes and be under contract next year too. So the good news is that both those guys that they've lost to the NFL, if they do, and we're rooting for them to make it, but if for whatever reason they don't, the Alouettes maintain their rights. So that is a very big deal. Keep in mind, we're not avoiding topics with our guests. This interview with David Brown and Justin Lawrence was recorded before the William Stanback and Luol Ugwak news came out. So that's why you won't hear about that. But they shared some great stories about winning the Grey Cup together, the championship parade, what went into Dave Brown's decision to retire. That's all coming up here. And a reminder, Dave Brown and Justin Lawrence are very close. They both were drafted to Calgary, the Stampeders together back in 2018. And Dave Brown did not know that Justin Lawrence was jumping on the call. So it made for some funny moments. And we'll head down to David Brown Town right now as David Brown joins us. Dave, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Just hanging, man. I'm back home in London, Ontario. So I came home for the holidays, see my family, see my mom, dad, all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, ever since then, I've been kind of going crazy, packing, getting ready to move to Montreal because I'm going there on February 1st, me and my girlfriend, Danielle.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty sweet, man. Definitely a lot. You don't really realize how much you have to move until you kind of get into those deep, dusty corners of your closets and you realize, wow, there's a lot of clutter. But that's what we're dealing with now. And hopefully we can make it happen for Thursday.
So what's the weirdest thing that you uncovered in your closet that you can share? Because this is a G-rated PodcAls?
G-rated. I got a good buddy named Spencer Rollison, and he said for about 2 years now that I had his coat. I went to coat check one night. I ended up taking it home, whatever. And like I knew I didn't have the coat because I thought back when I got my ACL, I was, at home rehabbing, medicated. I had a memory of my brother giving him the coat back.
Hmm.
So he texted me like a couple weeks ago, being like, "Bro, like, where's my coat? Seriously." And I was like, "Man, like, I gave it to you." And not only did I do that, but I like convinced him that like he had it and he lost it. And I like got my brother in on it. My brother somehow remembered that too. So then, lo and behold, we're going through our apartment, and I found the jacket. and I
Wow.
just and I just took a picture of it, sent it to him, and he was not very happy with me, but
Wow.
it was pretty hilarious.
Do you like surprises?
I love surprises, big
All
fan.
right. Well, I got one for you right here. All right. So it's not going to just be you and I on this in this next little interview here. We've got one of your buddies here as well.
Do it, bro.
Let's bring him on right now.
My guy.
Yeah. This is what we do. We make dreams happen here.
This is the
As
best possible situation. I'm so
There you
happy.
go. So it was supposed to be. I told Dave Brown it was just going to be downtown Dave Brown and I, but figured we bring in his good buddy Justin Lawrence, All Star Center, three-time Grey Cup champ. What's going on, J Law?
How we doing, boys? Hey, Dave, I thought it'd be a good surprise, man.
Dude, I'm so
With the goat,
happy, honestly. I'm just so excited. This has just made this thing even better. I'm so pumped.
with the two goats, David Brown and Joey, man. Can't get
Yeah,
much better
man.
than this.
Two dogs.
Listen, if this is the most memorable part of your off-season, J Law, you can talk to me when you get back here, and we can spice things up a little bit. Um,
Yeah, I might need that.
So, look, okay, so let's, I want a roundtable discussion here, get going. So, I'm just curious, do we have to call you Coach Dave now, or can I just keep calling you Dave, or what's the deal?
J-Law can call me whatever he wants, like we've
Wow.
known each other for years. You can call me Dave, Brownie, whatever, but you definitely have to call me Coach Dave. Like strictly, Joey Alfieri has to call me by
Wow.
that moniker for sure.
J-Law, do you remember the first time you met Dave Brown? Like, where did you guys meet?
Oh God.
Yeah, Dave and I talk about this story all the time. First time Dave and I actually met. Like I know we did East West together, but I don't think we really met each other during that. So our first time meeting was at the All Canadian banquet in 2017. We were out in where was it? In Hamilton, I think that year.
Yeah, yeah, Ticat
Uh,
Stadium.
and we were literally waiting to go on stage, and Dave was right in front of me. As linemen standing right beside each other, and met Dave for the first time that time. And then when we got drafted to Calgary in 2018, we both met again that time as well. So got to know
Yeah.
each other really well.
I don't think
Joey,
Dave got drafted. Did you get drafted, Dave?
I got drafted, buddy. Fourth
Sup
round, fourth round,
supplemental?
28th overall.
Oh,
People don't
was it?
forget. Oh yeah.
Oh, my
But the
bad.
funny part about that story that J Law didn't talk about was that J Law thought that I had no time for him. He thought that I was like, oh, like this guy's the worst. And like he carried that with him to the point that when we were roommates in camp in Calgary together, he was like, oh, like I have to room with this guy. So he had this like secret hate going on for me that I had no idea about. That eventually we became boys, and it's history from there. But it was tough. It was a rough start.
Is
I was
it?
trying to give Dave the benefit of the doubt. I met him the first time, and I was like, man, this guy's a real dick. I was like, there's no way we get along, and then we get drafted together, and turns out to be, I guess, an all right guy.
Oh
All
yeah.
right. Yeah, he's decent. J Law, I mean, you guys were teammates. This year you were supposed to be teammates. Obviously, Dave got injured early on in camp. You think it's going to be weird to have him as assistant O-line coach, and he's going to basically be telling you what to do, or he's going to try to at least?
No, honestly, I don't think it'll be that weird of a transition. Honestly, like the one thing I've always admired about Dave, even when he was a player, was Dave has always been kind of like a coach when he was a player. Always really knew the schemes really well. Always knew the technique really well. So the thing is, like, I think it's a really natural transition for him. So honestly, even for me, like the fact that we played together, and that's been something that's happened in this Alouettes locker room for a bit. Luke, our O-line coach now, he played with pretty much, I don't know, last year he probably played with, I don't know, 3 or 4 guys that were in that group. So I definitely don't see it as a weird thing happening. I feel like if you're going to be a guy who's transitioning into coaching and you just play with those guys, you just got to go in and not have like an ego or, really be on like a power trip. And I know Dave's never been that guy, so I'm not too worried about that whatsoever.
So the first time he says, "Hey, Lawrence, drop and give me 40," what are you going to do it?
I'll drop and give him 20.
I'll take that.
I'll
I'll
meet him
take that.
halfway.
That's fair. Dave, I mean, look, obviously, you had a really good career. You played some guard, played some center, played some tackle. You played all over the old line. I think the only time in my life, I've known you for a couple of years now, the only time I've seen you not smile, I'll never forget you walking off the field and you could tell your knee wasn't right. And I know you'd gone through some knee injuries before, but I want to say that was the first week of training camp in 2023 in Trois-Rivières. And I'm just curious, like, what was the rehab and the comeback like, and when did you realize that, hey man, like, you know what, I don't feel like doing this again. I'm gonna coach. And when did you feel that you actually had a knack for coaching?
I think that for me, like everywhere I've been, all the coaches that I was underneath always kind of told me once I was like graduated from them, whether it was high school or college, whatever, they all said that I should be a coach, that it was a thing that would fit me pretty naturally. Like I know Coach Marshall, G Marsh over at Western, he always told me every training camp he was refreshing the transaction page, hoping that I would get cut just so he could bring me on the staff at Western, which I was kind of like, that's almost backhanded compliment, but whatever. So it's always been something that, others have said that I could kind of naturally progress into. And, once I got hurt this year, for me, it was my third ACL and my fourth knee surgery. So, when I get injured big, Joey. That's how it
Yeah.
goes. And,
Okay.
so I knew that, with that kind of injury history, that coming back, as much as I still had that passion for the game and as much as I wanted to be back out there with the boys, I had to be realistic with myself. And I kind of just realized and I fell into it to the point that, after the season, the Alouettes, they thought that I could really transition into that very naturally. And, being able to work under a guy like Luke and learn and get better, it's just been an awesome experience. And I can't wait to see where it goes.
I think it's cool that a lot of the guys, and it's no slight to them, but a lot of guys have season-ending knee injuries or injuries at all, and they go back home. You went home, you had your surgery apparently, and then you came back and you helped the guys, you helped keep the guys motivated. You helped on the coaching staff a little bit as well. Like you kind of touched everything. You served as a motivator. I'm just curious, like, what was the motivation behind doing that? Did you think that you'd be able to earn your way onto the staff? Because that's exactly what you did.
Well, honestly, I just had no expectations. All I really wanted to do was contribute. Like this was a year where I was going in. It was kind of one of the first years I felt more like a veteran of the team. And I was a known commodity. And for that to kind of fall through the cracks, I didn't want to just spend the whole season on the couch. So whatever way I could come back and I could help. Whatever way I could fit in and make life easier on the team. That's what I tried to do. And just being able to absorb from guys like Luke, guys like Byron, Coach Moss, Mike Leonello, GQ, Noel Thorpe, the whole staff, man. Like all those guys, as much as they're amazing mentors as far as the football field, they're also great men off the field that like anyone would want to emulate for their lives. They're all family men. Most of them are married. If they're not, they have serious girlfriends that they're well on their way with. So, like just being able to be in that atmosphere and see how close knit the coaching staff was, and as well as kind of being that liaison to the players as well. It was a really cool experience. And I had no expectations after the season. I didn't really know really like way. I kind of had like a backup plan. I thought about being like a high school teacher and going and helping out at Western, but then as soon as Danny kind of like asked me to come on staff, I didn't hesitate. I called my coach from Western again, Coach Marshall, and I asked him, like, do you think this is a good idea? And he's like, dude, listen, like the door to coach pro doesn't open often, doesn't open for everybody. So, jump at this. And that's what I'm doing. And, I can't wait to see how it goes and to try to contribute any way I can.
Yeah, I can't wait for Greg to be refreshing CFL.ca to find out that you've been fired this time so you can go back. J-Law, I'm curious, like you've been around the CFL a long time to see to see Dave Brown come back after the surgery. And you weren't really gone that long, Dave. I think you were gone for like what, 4, 6 weeks, something like that. You came
Just right
back
around
pretty
there.
quick. Yeah, you came back.
Quick.
You came back pretty quick. Were you happy to see him back? How did he help? Or did you think like, oh man, I finally got rid of this guy and now he's back?
No, it was so nice to have him back. Honestly, like when we lost Dave during camp, and we all said our goodbyes to Dave, and he went home to get his surgery and everything. Like obviously, it's one of those things. Like, and all those guys in the locker room knew Dave really well. I've known Dave my whole life really well. So to see him leave was hard, and we were all really excited when he kind of got back because, well, as you know, Joey, he's got that energy to him. So it was really nice just to have him back in the locker room. And honestly, can't really speak on guys on the other hand, but like for me personally, honestly, really helped me a lot because Dave's been in the system for a little bit and he kind of knows the offense. But the nice thing about it is Dave knows me really well as a player because we played together for so long. So he really helped me, transition in the offense, learn some of the stuff, and really translate to me in the ways that I can learn from it too. So Dave was a massive help for me, and I really thought, Dave coming in and just being there and helping the guys whenever he can, and I really thought it kind of escalated our group, and I noticed, like I said, it's one of those things. It's just Dave just being there kind of like really improved the play of our O line, and like I said, we were pumped to have him back in there. It's just Dave's a good time, and that's what our whole O line prides ourselves on is working hard and having a good time while we're doing it. So Phil was awesome.
Yeah, I think you and I, J-Lo, I think we were standing together in Vancouver. I texted Dave Brown. It was July 7, 8, 9. We were in Vancouver that weekend, and he had just had surgery, I think, or he was about to have surgery or something like that. And I remember we were about to check into the hotel, and I texted Dave, like, hey, man, what's up? What's going on? I thought you told me you were coming back. And he sent me a picture of him in the pool, and I think I showed it to you, and I was like, yeah, I don't think this dude's coming back.
Yeah, I remember that.
Credit to you, Dave. You did come back. You did mention, J-Law, how Dave knows you really well, and he's seen you play for a long time. So things are about to get uncomfortable here. That's what we do on this podcast. We make people uncomfortable. So, Dave, I'm sure you've watched tape now as a coach, and you're preparing for the upcoming season. I want you to break down Justin's game for me, strengths, weaknesses, and what you're going to tell him to fix. I want to know right now, and I want the honest truth, or else you're going to be fined.
Honest truth. Okay. How would I define Justin Lawrence? The other day, I think J Law is the ultimate underdog. He's been told he was too short coming out of high school, coming out of college, but at the end of the day, he's got a skill set that does not quit, man. That's a guy who, he does have limited, appendages, size, whatever, but that's not someone you want to be down a dark alley with. That's a guy that can punch his way out of there, and he's a like he'll road grade anybody. He's not afraid to get physical with anybody on the field. He's not scared of anybody. But on top of that, as much as he has that aggressive mindset, he's also able to kind of like meld it with the intelligence of the game. I think that that's something that he developed as a pro, back in our days in Calgary and through Toronto on his way here. He really, like, as much as he is that aggressive player, he really does see the field very well. He really is able to, make those calls and whatever audibles we have to do on the line of scrimmage with ease at this point in his career. And, I think that he's a top tier center in this league. I really, at this point, there's not many weaknesses. I think that
Oh, you're better than that.
I
What a
think
good guy.
I think the only weakness I'd say is his hairline's a bit lacking.
Oh.
That's the only one I can really think of. But everybody's got their stuff, man. I got a huge head on the other side.
Yeah.
Mine's huge. I got no calves. I got a whole list of things going on. He's got
Yeah.
just a hairline. That's not a big deal.
Wow. Any reply there, J-Law?
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, Dave was attacking the hairline. I was about to say how good his calves were, but he already touched on it.
It's a fair point. All right, we're with Coach Dave Brown and starting center Justin Lawrence on the podcast this week. So you guys obviously had very different views of what went on from September 16th after the loss to Toronto to November the 19th, and we can extend that to the middle of that following week, November 23rd or whatever, at the parade, if Dave remembers it. Just from each of your perspectives, maybe Dave, will start with you, man. I mean, like, I believe in this team. I work with you guys every day. I believe in this team. If you would have told me after the Toronto game that you guys are going to rattle off 8 in a row, go undefeated, and win the Grey Cup in the manner that you guys did, I'm not sure I would have believed that. I did think that we had an opportunity to win the Grey Cup, but the way you guys did it was ridiculous. I'm just curious, Dave, when you look back at this season, outside of the obvious of winning the whole thing, what's going to jump out at you when it comes to the run that you guys ended up going on?
To me, I think Jim Barker said it best on the panel on TSN. He said that was a culture win. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think Coach Moss came in with a total plan of the way that he was going to, have the players that he wanted to coach and the players that he thought could, lead us to success. And not only that, but having everybody truly like care about one another. Building the bird's nest, which is like our group kind of like activities that we do. We're playing, we're golfing, we're shooting mini hoops, playing pickleball, which became like a way of life around here. All those little things, you know what I mean? All that little connectivity that everyone had, to the point that, when I got here, we won 4 straight, everything was great. Then we lost 4 straight. But even though, you're going through those obstacles and that adversity, because the connectivity of the locker room is so strong, you stay steady. You don't waver, So as much as, you had blind faith in us, I had real faith because I knew that this locker room was really capable of things that were special. And for the way that it all turned out, it was like a storybook. But it was just awesome to be a part of, and I can't wait to try to do it again.
Are you saying I didn't have real faith? Is that what you just said?
I thought that that's kind of what you said.
No,
You
I
said
said
like no, like
I didn't
you
think you
said.
guys would win 8 in a row and win the Grey Cup. I thought you'd win 7 of 8 or 6 of 8 and win the Grey Cup, though.
Well, you gotta clarify your point, then, dude. From what I heard, I thought you had blind faith and you didn't think we were going to do
Yeah, that's
anything.
kind of on you,
So
Joey.
Yeah,
yeah,
but
Joe.
yeah, but isn't blind faith the best faith? It means that I don't have to see it to believe it. I just believe it
Yeah, but
anyway.
I had
But you
faith
get
that
to see it,
was
so you should believe it.
I
my
did.
faith. Our faith was based in fact, Joe. Yours was faith. Yours was fugazi. It was fugazi. It
Exactly,
wasn't. It wasn't real, bro.
because I hadn't seen you guys rattle off 8 in a row, and I said, you know what, they can do it anyway. So I think that my faith is stronger than yours. But J Law, the obviously winning the Grey Cup, like that game itself was special. The way you guys won it, you were banged up on the final drive, you gutted it out, and Fajardo hits Philpott, and we know what happens after that. But to me, I don't know, man. There was something special about the win in Toronto, and I'm sure that one meant a lot to you because you played a year with the Argos, you won a Grey Cup with the Argos, you come back, and you beat them in the way that you guys beat them, forcing the 9 turnovers and whatnot. I have this conversation with fans all the time where it's like, yeah, the Grey Cup win was special, but I don't know, smoking Toronto like that was crazy. Who's to say better, worse, or whatever? They're all great. I'm just curious how you lived those 2 games, and did you feel the same way? Was there a little extra oomph in that Toronto win?
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Like that game in Toronto was absolutely so special. For me, like it really had that extra meaning because we played Toronto 3 times that year and we lost all 3 times. And for me as a guy who just left that team to come out to Montreal and being a part of a new team, it was hard, man, losing to that team, like you said, 3 times. So for us, and like to be honest with you, Joey, heading into that game after the Hamilton, the first playoff game against Hamilton, man, like I really felt so confident about that game against Toronto. Like, just was a different feeling than the previous 3 times we played them. I don't know what it was, just a little different juice, a little bit of energy, a little the game plan or whatever it was. I felt so good heading into that game, and to see the way the defense played that game. Was just absolutely so special, man. Because like you said, we at that point we were just like as an offense, we just can't ruin this thing. Like defense is out there doing their absolute best to make sure we're in the best position to win that game. And to win that one was super special. But honestly, I can't take away from the Grey Cup win because to be honest with you, Joey, even to win that Toronto game and say to go lose the Grey Cup there, all that would have meant nothing. So at the end of the day, again, the Grey Cup's the one that matters. So as special as that Toronto one, going out to Hamilton and beating Winnipeg and in the fashion that we did too, like you said, the last minute drive with scoring with 10 or 11 seconds left. I can't remember how many seconds were left. Um, Phil Pot scoring that touchdown. Like it was honestly like once he scored that touchdown, I was like, I seen it happen, but like honestly, it took my brain about 5 or 6 seconds to process that. Like holy crap, man! Like we're in the lead with 10 seconds left, and it was unbelievable to me, man. And just that stretch of games, like talking about like how we won that big stretch of games going into all the way through the Grey Cup there, man. And we were just that's the beautiful thing about football is we kind of struggled to hit our stride all season long, but at the end of the year when it really counts, man, we got hot. Guys were playing to the best. We were getting rid of some of the mistakes that really killed us in other games. And that's the beautiful thing about it. We hit our stride at the right time, and that was one of the most memorable stretches of football games I've ever been a part of my life. And the series in the playoffs there, that was so incredible to me, and I know it was to everyone in that program.
Okay, I know you guys both had a lot of fun before I let you guys go in the celebration, post winning celebration. I'm just curious. I would like a story from each of you. A story, it could have been after the Hamilton game, after the Toronto game, or Grey Cup parade, whatever. Just a story of celebration that I haven't heard yet. So I want you guys to just something that stands out. Dave?
Something that stands out.
Yeah, just something that stands out.
I'll go with two stories. One that has to do with Joey, one with J Law. My favorite,
With
Grey
me?
Cup journey story with
Yeah.
J Law was after we beat Toronto. There
Mhm.
was a song playing. I forget which one it was, but it was like a big beat. It was a big rap song. And it's not really a song that, after a big win, that O linemen are down there breaking it down to. You know what I mean? There's some DBs, out there in the cut killing it. There's some receivers, running backs, whatever. But I walk in and my boy J Law is cutting up the D floor, bro. Like hand movements, like killing it, like all the way like to the beat. All the pros and cons of this guy, he is a great dancer. So I gotta say, that was probably my most memorable J Law story. And then I'd say my favorite Joey story was when you texted me post parade, and there was a video of our good friend P.Y. Laverne doing an interview, and I
On the
clearly
float, on the
on the
float,
float,
on
on the
TS, wait,
float.
on
Yeah, yeah,
TSN.
yeah. He was, we're going down St. Catherine Street, and I didn't know there was an interview taking place. And, Joey sent me a video that he obtained of, me throwing some, beverages back and forth with the fans and, getting the people going. And, it was just pretty crazy how, much of a lack of awareness I had in the moment, but it was pretty funny in my mind. That's the most PG way I can put that. But I'd say, yeah, those are, as far as like towards this podcast, those are my two favorite stories for sure.
J Law, have you seen this video?
Well, I don't know if it's the exact same one, but the one I was thinking about, I was going to talk about anyways. Is it the one where you get the can gets thrown into absolute dart and you one hand
Yeah,
snag it?
yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's the
might have
same.
been.
Yeah, same
I,
thing,
I,
different
I
angle.
was I was literally going to talk about that, man, because I remember seeing that. And to be honest with you, like I'll give Dave a little respect. Like he's got all right hands, man. Like to me, I wouldn't throw past him. But after seeing that clip of Dave one handed saying an absolute dart right into his hand, he snagged it. Like I'm telling you, one hand snagged OBJ style. Didn't even admire his work. Probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. So Dave, I'll give you a little credit. Maybe I would throw you a pass if I was in OC.
Yeah, so that's the
Uh,
one. That's the one, J Law. Like, so you have to see this. The PY Laverne and the assistant GM and Kenzie Lalonde, the TSN reporter, are on the float. I'm on this float. I'm watching this happen. And just the way the camera's set up, there's like a space between them. And Dave Brown is perfectly like 3 feet behind them, but in that space. And you just see him catch something off camera, cranks it open, like just absolutely guzzles it down and just celebrates like he just won the Grey Cup all over again. And it's all perfectly on camera. I still have no idea what is said in that interview because I'm staring at David Brown the whole time.
I need to see that angle. I need
Yeah,
to see
yeah.
it. I've only seen it from the, like you said, the angle of actually someone videoing Dave. So I need to see that angle from the interview.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. Just generally, guys, like I didn't know what to expect from that parade. As somebody who's born and raised here, grew up a huge Alouettes fan. Like I knew we started on Crescent and we made a right onto the Maisonneuve. Like I knew there was a lot of people on Crescent. When we turned the corner, I didn't know what was coming. Maybe you guys can speak to this real quick, but when we turned the corner and there was just people everywhere. And the thing is, when you walked by or when you drove by people, then they just kind of jumped on the street and just were following you. It looked like a zombie apocalypse or whatever it was, and they were just following you the whole way to the end. It was honestly one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Like I knew because Luke and I have gotten really close, and he was showing me videos of like 2009, 2010, like how crazy St. Catherine Street was. And I got a feeling from guys that had won before, like AC, Eric Delorier, Kristian Matte, Luke. They all said, like, dude, the parade is not what you want to miss. Like that's the apex of this whole thing. And so I knew that I had a, pretty high expectation going in, and this surpassed it, man. All the fans that came out and, were supporting us and really like were in that moment with us, partying just as hard as we were and celebrating just as hard as we were. It was amazing. And then going all the way down to that stage and seeing all the people in that park and, everybody getting their introduction. It was amazing, man. It was a lifetime memory that I'll never forget. And, it's something that I'll always love the city of Montreal for.
Yeah. J-Lo?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, Joey, man. It was like that for me. That was my first time being on a moving parade, for a Grey Cup celebration. So to me, like you said, when we turned on Maisonneuve, and like you said, we got about halfway down, and to me, that's still the coolest thing in the world was like we were on the front bus. Dave and I were on the front bus there, and we're just looking back, and it's like you said, as you were making your way along, the floods and the swarm of people that were just falling behind. That was to me one of the coolest things. I remember seeing one of the guys. I can't remember. It might have been Ruff. He had posted a picture. I think he was on the back bus, but it was all the people behind him. And to me, that was just such a surreal thing. And as you're driving along, you're looking at the buildings, like the office buildings that are there, the apartments, and people are always like they're all looking out the windows, they're on their balconies. The people are cheering, like they're just like for me on like you win a Grey Cup on a Sunday, and you have a parade on a Wednesday morning when it just snowed, and it's not that nice out, and people are just there to absolutely support you and show everything they can for you. I honestly, like you said, that was one of the coolest parades I've ever been a part of, and like the support we had, and the way it was set up and how it was executed, like it was, I still like it still gives me kind of goosebumps just talking about it to this day.
Did you hear that, Dave? One of the parades he's been a part of. We made Dave Brown uncomfortable. I think it's time before we go to make Justin Lawrence uncomfortable. So you won a Grey Cup with Calgary. You won a Grey Cup in Toronto. You won a Grey Cup in Montreal. I want you to rank the parades three down to one for me, the championship parades.
All right, so I'm gonna give Montreal. Montreal's my number one by far. That was the coolest thing by far. Um, I remember I remember the one in 2018 was really cool as well, but I wasn't a starter at the time, so it was a little different, kind of enjoying it and stuff like that. The one in so I'll put Toronto's last year at number two. They did a great job as well. It was just like a stationary, kind of like basically how we ended up in Montreal. Like we took the buses, then we ended up on stage. So it was that kind of thing right in Jurassic Park there in downtown Toronto. So that was really cool. And then I'll go Calgary 3, just like I said, just because it was more further back. And like I said, it's different appreciating it as a, like you said, like a coach or a guy who's really playing in that game compared to a guy who's just kind of watching it, right?
Oh,
So.
fair. Okay. Before we go, Dave, and I want to ask you guys just one more question each. Dave, because you're a Western guy, Sean Jameson was released by the Alouettes last week. I'm just curious, great career with Montreal, really gave them 6 great years. Unfortunately, was banged up at the end. Just what can you tell us about Sean and not just losing him, but just the type of guy he was, type of player he was, and just what you appreciated about him?
Well, I know Sean probably better than anybody on the team, man. I've been teammates with him for almost a decade at this point. He's really been like a pretty foundational part of my life. That we were great friends in college. We stayed friends, all through the pros. And not just that, he truly like kind of taught me a way of playing football, like really trying to use your mind to like really like try to put yourself in the best position on the field. And he was the best at that. Sean's got a great mind. He's one of the smartest guys in the team, no matter where he was at. He's he could play any position. He has the ability to center, guard, tackle, move inside, move outside without any hesitation. And I think that it's really the ball's in Sean's court. I think that if he wants to keep playing, then the sky's the limit. He could really keep climbing that mountain and become a great player again. And I think that if he does hang it up, he had a phenomenal career. And he can really look back at his career and say that he really achieved a lot. And I can say personally, I'm super grateful for who he was in my life.
Yeah, it's a tough business. J-Lo, I want to ask you about another veteran. How surprised were you when you saw that Kristian Matte was coming back?
To be honest with you, Joey, I wasn't surprised one bit, man. I don't know what it is, man. I've played 2 consecutive years with 2 different vets who are about the same age. I played with Phil Blake in Toronto, and I played with Kristian Matte last year, man. Both guys that are late in their late 30s, man. I don't know what it is in the water these guys are drinking, man, but honestly, they kind of move like spring chickens. And I know every time I say that to Kristian, I always say that to him. I always call him a young buck. But he's man, he's a dog. And like honestly, the way he played last year, I knew he had a lot of football left in him, man. Because like you said, I honestly, Dave can contest to this. The amount of times we'd be watching film and stuff, I was like, damn, is that 27-year-old Kristian Matte? Like,
Oh
so
yeah.
honestly, when he signed back, I really wasn't that surprised. What a hell of a football player he is, man, and the career he's had. So to have him back and like honestly, as good as he is on the field, he's even better in the locker room and like in our O-line room and our meetings and stuff like that. Like what a guy to have in there. So, for us, whoever comes into our O-line room this year and whoever's going to be there, having him around even just for that side of it is just so important to it. So for me as a guy coming into the locker room this year, he made it a dream as like you said, because it's always, you never know what you're going to get yourself into when you join a new team. So a guy like that makes it so effortless, especially as an older vet. So really wasn't that surprised, and we're really happy to have him back.
All right, before we go, Dave, do you have a Kristian Matte story I've never heard before? And I realize I told you guys I would keep you 10 to 12 minutes. It's been half an hour, but this is it. This is the
Oh,
last one.
Love it.
Kristian Matt story. Okay. There's so many, but again, we're trying to keep it G-rated.
We don't have to keep it G-rated. The censor button's going to get a workout in this podcast for both of you guys.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'd say there was a game. It was actually my first start against Ottawa, and I was a young buck. I was freaking out, like trembling, holding the ball, just trying to keep myself together. But Kristian was kind of like my guiding force that game, helping me out, doing all these things. And that game, it was where VA got hurt and Schultz came in and led a fourth quarter drive for us to win the game. So we are gassed after the game, like just gassed. And Kristian is just a puddle in his locker. He is just so tired, like can't even move. And he looks at me, he's like, "Yo, Dave," he's like, "What was the score?" I was like, "Bro, I think it was like 20-16." It's like, all right, just takes a deep breath, gets up. He just starts screaming at the team, like all his energy, like talking about how big that win was. And, like this is, the standard for the rest of the year, saying all these like inspirational things, like so locked into the moment, like in such like a big leader. And, we do the whole thing. We slap the lockers, count out the points that we scored. And then as soon as that was over, you just saw the life come out of this guy and he just was dying and he's just like sitting in his locker like, God, I gotta go put my kids to bed and wake up at 7 in the morning and wake them up. And I was just like, wow, this guy, he's definition of vet, dude. Big definition.
Thanks, guys. Behave yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, we'll do our best. You too, Joey.
All right, Joey, you're the best, buddy. I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks.
Take it easy,
Oh,
guys.
don't lie, Dave.
Thanks again to Justin Lawrence and David Brown, who were nice enough to join me for over 30 minutes. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Some good stories there. A good Kristian Matte story, a couple of good Kristian Matte stories as well. We hope you had a good laugh. Again, I just want to remind you that there's going to be podcast content coming out regularly. If you're an Anglophone Montreal Alouettes fan, you only speak English. That's okay. We love Alouettes Nation for who you are, but there will be a podcast that comes out every Tuesday. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else. Make sure that you sign up so you get the podcast right away. And if you're a French fan, si vous êtes francophone et vous êtes partisan des Alouettes bilingues, il va y avoir un podcast qui sort tous les jeudis. So the French podcast will come out on Thursdays, and it's going to be separate content, different interviews. So it's two different podcasts. If you're a bilingual Alouettes fan, you understand both languages, then you'll get two podcasts a week. If you only speak English, si tu parles seulement en français, then it's one podcast per week. Have a great one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the week. Hopefully there's some more big Alouettes news for us to talk about next week, but with free agency kicking off on the 13th of February and with the tampering window, whatever you want to call it, that teams can negotiate with potential free agents as of February 6th. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of news. So we'll keep you updated on everything that's going on in the world of the Alouettes, Canadian football. But thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your week.